Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network. And today's topic is intentions rather than goals. As we're coming up to the end of the year, people are thinking about New Year's resolutions and maybe taking stock of this year that is passing. We look at creating new goals and setting our sights on new achievements. The thing is that goals are very specific. A good goal is very specific. It's time delimited. It's achievable. We talk about SMART goals, right? The thing about setting goals is that it's outcome oriented. Good morning, Rosalind. Welcome. So good to have you here with us this morning. Well, before we get into actually discussing the distinction between goals and intentions, let's just take a couple minutes to get present. So let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen flooding your lungs, flowing into your bloodstream, nourishing all your cells, all your organs, bringing vital life energy to your body and being. And as you exhale, exhale any tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. This time, imagine brilliant, bright light lighting you up from the inside out, illuminating, electrifying, and energizing all your cells, your molecules, your electrons, creating a brilliant beam of light and energy from your heart out into the world. And as you exhale, exhale any remaining tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's press our palms together. Vigorously rub your hands together to feel the friction, the temperature, the pressure, the motion, the tickling and tingling as you stop. And allow all those sensations to bring you present, right here, right now, into this remarkable physical form that enables us to experience life. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So, intentions rather than goals. And so goals are very specific and they are outcome based. And I think that we can have, in the context of intentions, I think we can have milestones, and that's what we might have called goals in the past. But with goals, it's like the milestone is the intention, is the outcome, and we'll do anything to get to that outcome. And intentions instead are more process oriented. And the idea here is to be living life, not to just do whatever the doing is to get to the goal, put your head down, and then when we get the goal, we'll celebrate kind of thing, or we'll live when we get the goal. But the process itself is where life happens. And so when we set intentions, we're essentially creating a field, and it's in creating, and I guess we do that with goals as well, but with an intention, there's it's a broader field. And so for instance, I was talking to a client who was saying that they were setting all these goals for their health and resolutions to eat more healthily and to do more exercise and a lot of doingness. And it's not that the doing doesn't matter, but the place from whence the doing is coming makes a big difference in the quality of our experience as we're doing it. So if the intention is to improve one's health, then there are multiple or multitudes of ways that those improvements may come about. So the obvious ones are exercise and eating habits, and with a goal, when we fall off our pattern, like if we're setting a resolution that we're going to exercise every day kind of thing, and we fall off, then there's this sense of disappointment. Or if we don't meet a goal, there's this sense of disappointment and failure. Whereas when we have an intention, we can be self-correcting, so just recalibrating. If we fall off, then we get back in the game. And it's a very different sensibility to be driving toward an outcome versus being in the process. And it's possible, certainly, to be in a process toward a particular outcome, but it's a very different thing, for instance, to go on a diet versus creating a healthy lifestyle. And I think that's essentially the distinction that we're talking about, is something that becomes integrated as a state of beingness with our intentions. And I invite you to feel into the difference. One of the things that I work with people around is to shift from being a human being, a human doing, to becoming a human being. In other words, to be focusing more on our being state. And what that looks like is our engagement in the present, in the experience of living, versus trying to get to these places. And then, when I have a bunch of money, I'll feel happy. Or when I find my perfect partner, that's when life will be good. And then I'll let myself rest. After I make my first million, then I'll let myself rest. The idea here is that life happens now, like this very moment. Life is happening in this very moment. And so being present to life gives us the greater opportunities, like to actually experience and recognize the opportunities that life presents. So even with this intention of better health, all kinds of, versus an intention to exercise every day, for example, although we might be doing both, but the intention toward better health leaves space for all kinds of expressions of better health to show up, or opportunities for better health to show up, that we might not have anticipated when we're saying, okay, I'm going to create this discipline, this pattern, this is the goal. So one is very, very sort of laser focused and precise, and the other is open to evolution and change. and a greater forgiveness for ourselves as well, to be able to be growing through the process. So the other thing about goals that I think is really reflective of our culture and the polarity that we create is goals are kind of black and white. You either make it or you don't, right? It's a black and white thing, and if you don't, then there's a sense of failure around that. And that failure can become very disheartening. And it's also this notion of outcome versus process. So when we think about failure, I think about feedback that, well, this attempt, for instance, failed, or I didn't get the outcome I was looking for, and that's feedback. It's not, I am a failure kind of thing. And it's interesting in terms of identity. It's interesting because that was one of the identities that I grew up with, was believing that who I was a failure. And when we have that kind of identity, we create opportunities to affirm it, whatever the identity is that we have. We live into the world with that identity, and then we create experiences that justify it. And this is where we can exercise our awareness, to look at, well, what is that? What created that, and how can we recreate it? And even to be able to question the truth of these identities that we have accepted, that were maybe cast upon us, or that we developed on, that reality is actually so malleable. It's really quite mind-boggling when we look at how our shift of perspective, even from goals to intentions, for example, from this black and white polarity, that's connected with yes, no, good, bad, right, wrong, got the goal, didn't get the goal, win, lose, that whole polarity, moving from that into this notion of process and unity, wholeness versus polarity, or rather than, when we move into these different states of mind and take on different personas, different roles, the world that we experience changes profoundly. It's extraordinary. So rather than experiencing an identity of failure, what would it be like to experience an identity of success? Just to play with it, just to feel into it. How would I hold myself physically if I believed I were a failure? If that was an identity I was taking on, how might I hold myself? I might be slouch shouldered. I might be constricted. I might have head down. I would be probably looking down. I I would feel different emotions versus how would I feel if I were a success or if I were successful. So there would be a different posture. There would be a different way of breathing. There would be a different focus, literally. We, rather than looking down, we would most likely be looking up. And so I invite all of us to have an intention of awareness. So this is, it's an interesting thing when we think, for instance, about meditation. Meditation, we have an intention of presence, of clearing our thoughts, of being in the moment and not getting caught in the stories. And inevitably, what happens when we're meditating is we discover that we've gone off on some kind of tangent and we bring ourselves back. And that's what we're talking about with intention versus goal. You know, the intention is to quiet the mind, and we get to keep doing that. We keep getting the opportunity to bring ourselves back and to reaffirm that intention versus having this specific goal that then we messed up again, you know. And rather than, I think that there's an element of self love that is part of the intention versus goal. And goals might work for you. You know, I just have this thing about it, I guess, where there's a harshness about goals, probably because there are many goals that I've set for myself in my life that I didn't achieve, and it didn't feel good. Whereas when I have an intention, I I I feel that there's a lot more fluidity, there's a lot more forgiveness, there's it feels kinder to me somehow. And you feel into it yourselves. Notice what that's like for you. It's interesting because as we're talking about goals, this notion of success and failure comes in, because we tend to set goals that are not necessarily achievable within the time frame that we establish for ourselves, you know, or we'll set a goal without the commitment, whereas an intention is for me anyway, it's something that I can keep reaffirming, that I can keep coming back to, that I can live inside of and actually be present inside of, rather than trying to push everything aside to achieve this particular outcome. And I just have been experimenting, and I invite you to explore this as well, this distinction between outcome versus process. Because driving toward an outcome has us put blinders on. And that can be very effective to achieve an outcome, for sure. And there are times when there is an outcome that is required. I get that. And the way that we be, the way that we are on the way to the outcome, I believe makes all the difference in the world. It makes all the difference first in our experience, but it also makes a difference on the outcome, where there's a different kind of magic that happens. And I know that people can achieve this with goal setting too, when they're really intentional about it, when they're really intending, um, where the goal or the outcome is aligned with their intention. Part of the thing with a goal is that you want to have an the why driving the goal is really important in its achievement. And it is that why that is the intention. I don't know how many of you have experienced setting an intention to go in a certain direction or to have a certain outcome, and as you are mobilized to go in that direction, other opportunities show up that wouldn't have been anticipated, that actually provide a better outcome than what you had originally intended. And to be able to pivot and adapt and evolve, that's what I'm talking about with intention rather than goals. Um, there's a different dimension of engagement with intentionality, and it doesn't mean not to have the markers along the way, but the markers are not the highlight as much as the intention that is moving through the markers, if that makes sense. Again, the difference between being and doing. It's not that when we are focused on being, we do nothing. What it is that the quality of the doing shifts, and the quality of our experience in the process shifts. And so, really, this is a conversation about being versus doing, or rather than doing, and the qualitative difference of life and the pressure we put on ourselves, and the openness that we have to innovation and engagement to the experience of life is a very different thing. You know, if we set ourselves a discipline, I don't know about you, but I find that my disciplines last for X period of time before becoming burdensome. Whereas if I have an intention, I can find all different expressions of that intention, and it's more alive in me rather than something that I've become oppressed by. I think we create our own oppressions in so many ways, by disciplines that might not be in fullest alignment with ourselves. Like, we will set goals because that's what we should do, rather than what we're really committed to. So I guess this conversation is also about finding alignment. Good morning, Jennifer. Welcome. Um, what this conversation is about alignment with ourselves and with our true commitments and our true intentions. And so I invite you to engage in that exploration about what your intentions are, and then to take action from that intention, from that inspiration. So that's it for today. I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection, and I go live here each weekday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page and YouTube channel. And I invite you to please like, follow, and share Enlightened World Network and me. The links are in the description. And as always, it's such fun and such a gift to have the opportunity to share these morning musings on what it is to be human. So until next time, so much love to you.